necessarily.
We gotta do the food. Probably me.
Hey, how are you? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the meeting, so we're going to start off Facebook Live. That should need everybody to come in and take your seats and get ready to go. We'll be ready to go in less than 60 seconds. If everybody can come in and take your seats, we'll be ready to go in 60 seconds. Right here.
But do you need a microphone?
No, it should be fine.
Okay.
All right, we're live. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone here this evening. I'm John Funny, Chair of the Social Justice, Race, and Equity Commission. I would like to call our meeting to order. Let me welcome each of you here today. Everyone out on Zoom, good evening. How are you? Can you see me? There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A little bit. There we go.
All
There
right.
he is.
Is that better now? All right.
Yes.
So we're ready to get started. Let's go ahead and do our roll call for this evening. And I will pull this. Then I need to move back. Commissioner Alexander. Commissioner Alexander. Commissioner Alvarez. Commissioner Alvarez. If you're out on Zoom, if you can, they can speak back to us, right?
Yes.
So if you're on Zoom, you can acknowledge your presence by saying present. I just want to make sure we cover everyone. Commissioner Anwar. Commissioner Anwar. Commissioner Barrera. Commissioner Becerra. Commissioner Bowden. Thank you. Commissioner Burnett.
Present.
Commissioner Kane.
Present.
Commissioner Kane. Thank you. Commissioner Curiella. Commissioner Curiella. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Collins. Commissioner Collins. Commissioner Cortez. Commissioner Cortez. Commissioner Korn.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Funny, present. Commissioner Hardy. Commissioner Hershen. Commissioner Knight. Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Moses. Commissioner Moses. Okay. That's right. Yeah, definitely family. Commissioner Catherine Merriwater. Thank you. Commissioner Naglish. Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Nisi. Commissioner Owen. Commissioner Petzold. Commissioner Palmer. Commissioner Pascal. Palmer is here. Can he acknowledge his presence, please? Commissioner Palmer.
He's on mute.
He's on mute. Okay. Commissioner Russell.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Todd.
Present.
Commissioner Torres. Commissioner Wells.
Present.
Commissioner Window.
Present.
Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Woodward. I think he's excused absence. Commissioner Wright. Yes, ma'am, Wright Hudson. And Commissioner Williams. Thank you, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Eric is present. He says his name, it's maybe a skip.
Commissioner who?
Eric.
Eric. Yes, I did skip that. You're exactly right. Thank you. Commissioner Arif, let the record show that Commissioner Arif is present. Did I miss anyone else? Can't miss you guys. You guys doing such an awesome job. I have to make sure you're here. Next on the agenda, we will actually move for the adoption of the agenda. It's been properly moved. Is there a second? It's been properly moved and second. Any unreadiness? Any debate or discussion on readiness? I'd like to make one edit to the agenda to add a chairman's report after the approval of the meeting minutes. Any other changes to the agenda as presented? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the agenda, please state aye.
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 And then we'll go to the COVID version of Robert Rules of Order. All those who oppose, state nay and state your name for the record, please. All right, let the record show that our adoption of the agenda has been approved unanimously. Next on the agenda, we will have the approval of the July 15th, 2021 meeting minutes. You should have received that. Thank you for preparing the meeting minutes and getting that out to the commissioners. Is there a motion on the approval of the July 15th, 2021 meeting minutes? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there? Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we approve the July 15th, 2021 meeting minutes. Is there any unreadiness or debate or discussion on the meeting minutes? Any unreadiness, debate or discussion? Seeing none. All those who oppose, state nay and state your name for the record. I flipped it on you that time, right? All those who oppose, state nay and state your name for the record. All those who are in favor, state aye.
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 I hear you in Zoom land. Thank you very much. Let the record show that we have approved our meeting minutes but unanimously for our July 15th meeting minute. Next, before we go to our moment of inspiration where I'll bring up Leslie, I just wanted to share with you from a chairman's perspective. I want to personally inform you that this evening, I am resigning as position of chair of the Social Justice Commission. Tonight is my last time in this role as I'm resigning the position. Some of you may have recalled that I announced in June that I would run for Brookhaven City Council for District 4. On yesterday, I officially qualified for the race, which necessitates my resignation. To the mayor and council, thank you for the confidence that you placed in me when you selected me to chair this group of distinguished Brookhaven citizens. Following public unrest and demonstration across the country last year, Brookhaven leadership saw the need to start a conversation and create a framework for action in our community. This resulted in 37 diverse members of the community coming together to have discussion on how we could improve our community in this regard. We were tasked with addressing diversity and equity in the community, which included a review of the city's mission statement, hiring practices, contracting practices, and policing practices. We took our roles and responsibilities seriously as we had tough discussions and reviewed issues that impacted all of us in one form or another. To my fellow commissioners, it has been a pleasure and honor to work with you as we sought to improve conditions in Brookhaven for the benefit of all. I am grateful for the opportunity afforded me over the past year to learn from you. My hope is that I was able to likewise allow you to learn a little something or two from me. This week, I enter a new chapter in my life as a candidate. I am new to a political race as I've never run for office before, but I am no stranger to government. I understand how it works and will bring that knowledge and understanding to this role in District 4. Running for City Council affords me an opportunity to continue the work that I've been doing in Brookhaven. this time as an elected member of the government, and I'm excited about the future. As I depart, I want you to know that I will make myself available to support a smooth transition to your next chair. So please do not hesitate to call upon me. In closing, thank you again for your kindness, your support to the Chrysalis Lab and to the Kittering Foundation. Thank you for your professional assistance with this effort, an effort that hasn't been held in many cities in the state of Georgia. I have enjoyed my tenure in this role, and I will continue to serve, and I will continue, and serving with each of you made it a great experience, which I will always be grateful for. As I make this new journey towards a new chapter working on behalf of Brookhaven, I ask for one other thing of importance. I ask for your prayers. I will miss our interactions on this board, but I look forward to continuing the work with you as a community partner. Thank you. So at this time, I'll bring up Chrysalis Lab Representative Leslie, and Leslie will provide us with our moment of inspiration.
Hi, everybody. If I could ask everybody who's with us today, and I'm going to step here into Zoom. If anybody's on Wi-Fi, it doesn't need to be on Wi-Fi. Could you disconnect from Wi-Fi? We were having some connectivity issues, and I think it's just due to the volume of the bandwidth. To improve our Zoom presentation for our virtual audience, if you are on Wi-Fi and you don't need to be on Wi-Fi, just go to 4G if that's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, Chairman Sonny, for all that you've brought all of these months to the commission, a group of individuals coming together, not knowing what to expect and where we were going and what was happening, and your leadership and your vision for that brought us to this point today. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so I just get to introduce our inspiration for the evening. Amanda Gorman wrote and performed The Hill We Climb to celebrate the 2021 inauguration of Joe Biden as the 46th president of the United States. The poem celebrates the United States not as a perfect union, but as a country that has the grit to struggle with its all too real problems. We wanted to open with this beautiful poem and its inspirational charge because we felt like it was an apropos tribute to all of you for all of the work you're doing and your resolve to make Brookhaven the very best it can be. So enjoy the video.
Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emma, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a seed we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country in the time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean you are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. Forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised blade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how can we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country, our people diverse and beautiful will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Thank you, Mindy. Such encouraging words from Amanda as she spoke so eloquently about climbing this hill. So kudos to her. And I know she is definitely receiving a lot of accolades because of those words that was chosen for. And it's so appropriate. Many things that she spoke about is what we are doing as a part of this commission. And if you listen very carefully, it's talking about being brave. We're being brave. So thank you, commissioners, for being brave. And thank you, Leslie, for sharing that. I mean, I can tell you, I was sitting around watching her when she doing the inauguration, and sitting there listening to it again, it just brings back so much embracement, so much memories from that time. So thank you, Leslie. Great. All right, next we're going to get into the meat of the meeting. As you're aware, the subcommittees are doing a great job, and they're actually working on many topical areas. So we want each of the subcommittee chairs, or co-chair, one of the co-chairs, to come up and give us an update on what's going on in your subcommittees. I've been getting some updates casually, but I think this is a great opportunity for you to present to your fellow commissioners what's going on. First, I'll call up Mission and Vision, Commissioner Pascal. You're doing it? Okay.
Good evening. Okay, yes. So I'm going to go over our bullet points. First of all, progress and accomplishments. Exactly 2 weeks ago, we had a very productive virtual workshop led by our fellow commissioner, Horn, around identifying values in our community using a Rubik's Cube model, a multidimensional approach. So this helped really to clarify our process and was interactive. We talked about attributes of the city. We talked about aspirations for the city. We talked about, equity, and does the mission and vision, reflect that value of equity? And it just helped us have a deeper discussion about the multidimensionality of the city. In terms of challenges and issues, we still need to figure out what community engagement for our mission and vision subcommittee is going to look like, and how to go about it. We would love to get a feedback pre-direct on the question, does the mission and vision of the city, reflect the city? Is this an appropriate, like an accurate statement for what we would like to do some kind of community engagement around that question. Another challenge or issue that we want to talk about was, maybe some improvement in communication between the various subcommittees and looking for ways to better cooperate and collaborate. I know some of the subcommittees are doing their own survey questions and emails, and I know some of them are including questions on mission and vision, but we wanted to maybe see if we could coordinate some of this better and see how we can work together a little bit better. And then, we're more than halfway through our journey now, and I think we would love to be able to figure out and articulate to our commissioners in our mission and vision subcommittee what our work will look like over the next 3 to 4 months. In terms of next step, again, the community engagement around this is residents, businesses, other stakeholders. Do they feel that the mission and vision reflect their city and the values? And probably this will happen in some kind of online survey format. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pascal. And we appreciate the challenge that was given. And I know Leslie's over there taking notes. I think it may be a good idea for the co-chairs to get together and have a dialogue around the table, because they can leverage off of what others are doing within their subcommittee. So I think that is probably something. So Commissioner Pascal, we hear you, and we want to make sure that you leverage off of what other committees are doing. Next up will be hiring and retention. Commissioner Minor, our Vice Chair.
Up this hill. Alrighty. Can you all hear me or do I? Okay, perfect. First of all, I just want to quickly just thank the committee, the Hiring and Retention Committee. Always like to try to start with a little bit of recognition, and I don't always do that, but I do want to thank each of you because I know this has been a labor of love, and we've had many calls and conversations. So I just want to first start with that. And I also want to thank Kyle specifically as well. As part of our work, one of the aspects of our work was to go out and look for who could possibly, as part of our recommendation, work with the city to help with survey administration, which is a recommendation. And he was able to identify a vendor, package up a proposal, et cetera. So I just want to also thank you, Kyle, for going extra mile on that. So thank you. Really quickly on updates. Last week we submitted, so with the collaborative effort with the team, the hiring and retention team, we were able to package up the recommended survey questions. We leveraged the Society for Human Resource Management as a baseline to formulate our questions. And they were really specifically designed around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it gave us a really good jump off point for input. We tweaked it based on all those inputs, packaged it all up. In addition to that, we also made a request to the city to see if they, if I recall, I believe that Christian had made a recommendation or suggested that he could get some input from other municipals on some best practices that we could also just take a look at so that we could decide are there other things that we could, put in our recommendations as we get closer to the end of this work. So that was submitted, and then, or at least the questions that we had and the things that we wanted to review. And then we also submitted the proposal, the piece of work that Kyle worked on with the vendor. So all those things were done last week and they have that. And from what I understand, Steve Chapman is taking the lead internally on those things. So I am waiting for some feedback from him on some next steps. One thing I did confirm with Steve is that he, one of the aspects of the recommendations was to outsource a survey, and mainly because we felt like having a more objective point of view was going to be beneficial. And for anyone who's ever participated in a survey, employee opinion survey, oftentimes there's a little bit of unrest about who has access to the survey. Is it really anonymous? We don't know the dynamics within the city of Brookhaven because we don't work in the city of Brookhaven. So we thought it would be in our best interest to consider that. As of right now, the city, well, Steve has made a decision that he feels as though that can be maintained internally. However, he is still looking at everything. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Doesn't mean that couldn't shift, but just kind of the immediate sentiment is that they feel as though that can be administered in-house. I do think we'll come back with some additional recommendations and maybe make our why a little bit stronger. But at the end of the day, it's a recommendation. Yes, Christian.
Sorry, can you cut the corner on that? If you all feel that strongly about it?
I like it. Thank you. Awesome. Well, check that box off. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to follow up with you and have a direct conversation and make sure you get the proposal, Christian. So we have that. As far as challenges and issues, they're nominal. I mean, really, it's just the logistics and the timing of the survey administration window, which could impact some of the progress in September. But if we can get this moving along pretty quickly, I do think we can get the survey done no later than the second week of September, I think, third week, and still work within the vendor's timeline. So we'll follow up on that, but that's the only potential issue. And as far as stakeholder engagement in September, we're looking to make sure that the staff is surveyed during that window. We definitely consider the staff, all staff at all levels, a critical part of the community and the most vital community we need the input for to do the work we're doing. And work closely with Christian, Steve, and the HR department because this is a partnership and a collaborative effort. So that's really our next steps in September with our stakeholders. So any questions or concerns, feedback? Awesome.
And if anybody does have a question, please use the microphone so the people in virtual Zoom land can hear.
That includes you, Christian.
Any question for Commissioner Minor? No question. Thank you, Commissioner Minor, Vice Chair. As I leave this role as chair, you're in good hands with two vice chairs. So Commissioner Minor is one, and Commissioner Danita Knight is the other. So, by the way, she had a work commitment tonight. That's why Commissioner Knight is not here. So we have two vice chairs, so they're going to really, really carry the load. So I want to thank also, while I'm taking this commercial break, Kristen, your team has been superb. Thank you for the collaboration and working with the commission. And what he just did is an example of how it's not a difficult thing. He can just, you know, make it happen. So thank you, Kristen, Marcella, and Bert. You guys are awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys make all this stuff work. So thank you. And Tom stepped out. But I want to say that because the city's staff liaison has been a real asset to this commission in making things move smoothly. So, all right, next up is procurement and contracting. Commissioner Thomas.
Yes, I'm here. I'm online.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. The procurement and contracting subcommittee, we made some great progress over the past month. We got a chance to see some of the responses from our survey that was sent out back in July. And it was really interesting to see that although we didn't have as many responses as we would like, we had roughly about 34 vendors respond back to it. It was really interesting to see their responses about just their general feelings about working with the city through the contracting process. So we did get a chance to see that, you know, some of the vendors had more favorable responses than others. It also seemed like a large majority of the vendors who responded had businesses outside of the city of Brookhaven. So that was a very interesting trend to see. And that really kind of led us into one of the challenges and issues that we kind of saw was that, you know, from those responses, we kind of really sat back and realized that maybe the large majority of the work that's needed for the city of Brookhaven can't be done by businesses in Brookhaven, because many of those projects were for construction, they were for public works projects. And so those larger projects typically need a very large scale company or corporation. And so it really made the subcommittee reflect on what our recommendations would be in a couple of months about how we can create more equity within procurement and contracting. So that was definitely something that came out of the surveys that we thought about. And then one of the other issues that we had was just kind of, you know, trying to get more brainstorming. You know, we've kind of struggled over the past couple of months getting all the members together collectively to come up with more recommendations. But you know, I think what the survey responses is really kind of generated some new ideas and really got us going in a direction to where we can take some of the data we have and come up with recommendations in the next couple of months. We also did get a proposal from a Brookhaven citizen. He created a proposal specifically around how we could prioritize minority-owned businesses and how they do business with the city of Brookhaven, and we got a chance to review that, and we'll be following up with that citizen very shortly. But yeah, that's pretty much where we are now. And so again, we are excited about the survey responses that we do have, but also the direction that we can go into in terms of how these smaller locally owned businesses can do more within the city of Brookhaven. Yeah. Right. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Commissioner Thomas? While you're thinking about your question, I want to just recognize that his co-chair, Commissioner Moses, had death in the family. So keep him and his family in your thoughts and prayers. He sent an email to note. Any question for Commissioner Thomas? Seeing none? Okay, we'll move on. Next up will be Commissioner Monique Wright, Hudson. And she's going to talk to us about the policing subcommittee.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Unfortunately, I do not have a slide, so I'm not going to press right. I don't. Is it blank or is it just not on there? Oh, it's there and it's blank. That's what it is. My co-chair and I, we have been very busy, and clearly we missed the deadline and the reminder regarding the deadline to get our slide in. However, that does not mean that we have not been working. Under progress and accomplishments, we had our meeting. In our meeting, we were supposed to talk about the because we do have, we felt like we were having a lot of meetings. I've seen Davis as much as I've seen my husband, just not in the same way that I see my husband. So I was like, we just see each other a lot. But our committee agreed that we are not quite ready to pull our foot off the gas. So we will continue to meet. Did I do something? Oh, we will continue to meet every 2 weeks, and we do get a pretty good showing. And so in our last meeting, what we were really discussing was community engagement. And so with policing, we really spent some time discussing who's our stakeholders in that regard. And it's everyone in the city of Brookhaven, and as well as the officers themselves. And so with that being said, how are we getting community feedback and stakeholder feedback with that large of a population? Even with mission and vision, it's everyone that's here. But then with police arrests, with the majority of people who don't come from the city of Brookhaven, how are we able to kind of figure out whether we're having equity issues as it relates to that? And so we're really just brainstorming. And the thing that we decided to really start with, because we can't survey the world or all of Atlanta, what we decided to do was really leverage the relationships that the city of Brookhaven Police Department already has. They sent us a list of, I don't know, maybe 50 organizations or so that they already have relationships with. And I looked at it first, I was kind of like, well, I mean, if you're asking people they already have relationships with, then are we really going to get candid responses? And so that was the challenge, right? But, all relationships are not always formed on, during the honeymoon phase, and they're all not always great. And so those people will be able to tell us what their issues are, but we're trying to be really careful to not overburden those particular organizations. We always talk about and that will help us tap into our Hispanic population. And it's like, no, but they got work to do. They have surveys, they're already surveying what they need to survey. They're already working with people who they are. So what we're really trying to do is just figure out who the point of contact is at these places, see what resources they are willing to give to us or what work they've already done, and see if that work will be able to help us inform our next steps. So that is both our progress and our challenge, and actually what's next for us. So in our marathon meetings, we will be meeting again next week, Davis, I'll see you then, on 8/25, on 8/25, 5:30, we'll meet again, and we'll be discussing, exactly those things, just trying to figure out what our community engagement is going to look like going forward. So please don't, judge us by the fact that we didn't get our stuff in. We are working and working hard. Oh, and one of the other really good suggestions was that while we still have civic dinners as a contract with, or inclusive dinners, she said civic dinners, but with inclusive, is that we wanted to see if we could host a civic dinner, or inclusive dinner with the Brookhaven Police Department. And so having them, and we wanted our subcommittee members to be actual, I hear me. Is that you, God? Is that me? So we wanted our subcommittee members to be the hosts at the tables, and then to have the police officers there, but to go over the same questions that we had, just to see if they're willing to come, if they're willing to participate. And to the extent that we need more hosts, we wanted to open it up to other commissioners as hosts, whereas the inclusive dinners that we had open to the community as hosts. So we have another 2 weeks to get that scheduled and done. We got to work around. Okay, so we're hoping to get that on the schedule, and we don't know. I mean, it's community engagement or stakeholder engagement in the sense that, again, the police officers are stakeholders, and you would hate to make a recommendation that never talked to them. And so we're just hoping that that will be helpful moving forward. I saw you.
So real quick, when you were talking about looking at equitable practices for the police, has there been a study or an assessment done of the types of the arrests that have been done?
Yes.
The demographics and locations?
Yes. So it's in our last meetings, and we've already broken up like what our area of focus is. And so we did our 4P assessment on those areas. And one of them was really informed by the demographic data. Police department, when it's on in base camp, so if you go on there, you'll see they have wonderful graphics on who they're arresting, what their ethnicity is, what their race is. And that brought, for instance, with the ethnicity stuff, we were looking at, oh, well, we have Hispanics, and then we have Blacks, and then we have Black Hispanics, and then we have white Hispanics. And then it's like, who told them they were Black? Who told them they were white? And then we were trying to figure out how were they getting that data. And then we were finding out that there was some discrepancy, and there wasn't any, consistency on how that was identified. And maybe because that doesn't really even exist in the Hispanic community, and somebody's trying to come up with something at the police department, or maybe it does and they see themselves differently, and just trying to make sure that there aren't any disparities and there's equity there. But the racial data is there. It is in base camp, but it is very interesting and very comprehensive. And by district and zone as well, like Buford Highway versus Dunwoody, and on those as well. Go ahead. It was a...
This isn't a recommendation.
Yeah.
If we're doing 360 on what interactions, a couple of groups to talk to them already done it is the probation office and the public defender within the court system. They have different set of loyalties for a lot of that work, and they are part of our municipal court. So they say. And then the other is I just got a briefing today on calls for service and response time, and I was thinking just as we said, who we talk to. From what I can tell from my memory, we have about 20,000 interactions a year in the police department and the community. And of those, about 6,000 of them were actually dispatched, called for. The rest is the opposite. So about maybe 1/4 of the interactions are someone asking for service. What is the record of that?
Yeah.
We know who they are. Yeah. They have their phone numbers, their addresses, and their names. And they can be calling from another city or so, but they're typically okay. I don't know if you've asked for that.
So we have complaint data, and we do have the complaint data. Brookhaven PD has been wonderful in providing data. And so Kathy and Lauren on my committee, they also worked on their particular area of the 4P was on community comfort and calling. And so when we were looking at the data, we were wondering not just who was calling and what's the races, because they weren't taking the race of the caller, right? But we could see kind of how the complaints were disposed of. Like, what was there a finding? Was there no finding? Was there corrective action taken against the officer in that regard? But then we were like, well, do all races feel comfortable even engaging with the police in Brookhaven? So are we seeing more calls from one area or another, and what is that attributable to? And kind of anecdotally, we learned from an officer during our use of force training that they receive a lot of calls from the Buford Highway area. Like, those communities are actually calling the officers to come there, and it's not maybe always because someone is maybe profiling or looking to go there, but they're responding to calls. So that data, it was provided. We're still trying to figure out, what it all means, because it is a lot of data, and they were very forthcoming. So, but my time is up. All right, y'all. I told you we were working.
And actually, this is not for your subcommittee. I actually wanted to go back on that. Just one word that kind of sparked an idea. At the end of the procurement committee, business in Brookhaven. made me think about, that's a very specific word. Is it do business with Brookhaven or do business in Brookhaven? And I think both are valid questions for the subcommittee. Because even though there may not be types of work that this institution called Brookhaven, they're not firms to do it, but there might be companies in Brookhaven who want to do work in Brookhaven, which is wholly different than working with Brookhaven, this institution. So I don't know if that distinction has been made in that committee, but it'd be interesting just to move it around.
Okay. So I've been given some instruction by our technical team. That's the team. Our Zoom land, they're not able to hear very well through the microphone. So I've been given a task of repeating the question and repeating this response. And Kristen just did it 2 times. So I'm going to remember everything Kristen just said. So Commissioner, the subcommittee co-chair, she elaborated on the fact that having discussion with individuals that do not exist in Brookhaven, how do you get more information and more data? Kristen replied that they can speak to another audience, which would be the public defender, because they look at it from a different angle. So that will give the subcommittee another avenue to collect some data. Then Kristen said, take that mic from Kristen, I'm joking. Then Kristen elaborated on the fact of doing business in Brookhaven, and this goes back to the contract and procuring subcommittees. He was saying we got to look at it 2 ways. It's either doing business in Brookhaven or doing business with Brookhaven, focusing on that you can be a business in Brookhaven just because you're here. You're not doing business with Brookhaven. Is that right, Kristen? So I think it's very important, very good point, Kristen, that the procurement contracting subcommittee really assess that, because just because the business is here, they're in Brookhaven, but they may not be doing business with Brookhaven. So thank you, Kristen, for those observations and suggestions. Any other questions for policing subcommittee? All right, seeing none, we're moving right along. So next on the agenda, we're going to go into the stakeholder engagement talk. And I'm going to bring up Leslie, and she's going to introduce our next segment for stakeholder engagement.
Thank you, Chairman Funny. So I would just say it is just really gratifying to listen to you all's reports, how you're digging in the data, the camaraderie. There's something pretty special going on here in addition to the hard work.
Even with the blank slide.
Even with the blank slide was the longest one. But I mean, by the time she rattled it off, it's just, it really is wonderful to look at. It is. So we're approaching what we've called the stakeholder engagement process or input phase of our work. And words are just words, right? But we try to distinguish the broad community input that we've been doing all summer. We're gonna get a little early results of that in a minute. We try to distinguish that from this stakeholder piece, which, as you've already stated, is really about the experiences specifically related to the topics that you're looking at, specifically getting that voice of folks who have the experiences and the perspectives with those particular issues. And so we wanted to actually talk a little bit about that this evening and get some perspective from those around the table.
I want to get you on camera.
Get in the middle. So we're going to do a few things. One is we're going to share, do a short video. We are not professionals. I just need to say that. We did pretty good, I think. But I think the message will be powerful. And it is a conversation with Nathaniel Smith, who's the founder of the Partnership for Southern Equity, talking about this community stakeholder engagement piece. So that'll be the first part. And I'm asking him some questions. We'll also then get an update from Mindy, just again, early indications around what we did this summer. It's been an amazing summer, right? Of moving around and hearing from people, surveys and so forth. We haven't analyzed all of the surveys yet. There are a couple of more events, but early indications of what's come out of that. And then we're gonna ask you to reflect where you are and online a little bit about this summer, about what you heard from folks and in those discussions, what you learned, and then any ideas you have around how to continue this community engagement. You'll remember that the charge of the commission is not only those 4 topics, but recommendations to sustain robust citizen engagement. So this is a time coming fresh from this, the next 2 meetings, we're going to get that from the group and begin to hone those. So with that said, and so we have, and we're going to ask you when you go in your groups, and I'll mention this again, to just pick a recorder. We have some forms for you to complete. Pick a recorder. We're going to ask for groups of 3, and online, we'll have to stay as a whole group, but we'll ask you to pick a recorder as well, because we are going to ask you to report out, like 1 minute, 2 minute report outs, so that we can capture all of this data from the thinking you've done. So we'll get there. Let's start with the video now, and that'll be the next few minutes, 15 minutes.
20.
See, that's part of the online.
So welcome, Nate, to this occasion. We're really glad that you could join us and to share some of your wisdom. And so I want to do a little introduction first, so that this can be a whole segment that we can share later.
Hey, just refresh this quickly.
We can go ahead and do that for you. Nathaniel Smith, the founder and chief equity officer of Partnership for Southern, which advances policy and institutional actions that promote racial equity and shared prosperity for all in the growth of metropolitan Atlanta and the American South. Among PSC's notable accomplishments was creation of the South's first equity mapping and funding tool, the Metro Atlanta Equity Atlas, and advocacy in the ratification of a 15% set aside.
Thank you. A little taste, but that's enough.
I appreciate it, and just having known and watched you so many years as you advance this vision and this dream, and to have you here, particularly at this place and this time, just feels so gratifying. So thank you for everything you put in and for everything you did to us every day, you and PSC. So I want to start a little bit personal. Actually, tell me, how do you feel? How are you keeping yourself in such times whole and healthy and strengthen and encourage people?
Well, I'll tell you, Leslie, again, it's really, in many ways, touching to have an opportunity for us to spend this time together. I remember many, many years ago, and it's amazing how long ago, PSC is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. When I initially came to you with my idea of starting a partnership with Southern Equity, and I can't remember the name of the group that we were on the board of at the time, the regional, the Civic League Regional Atlanta, and we both served on the board for the Civic League. And it's just amazing, to see how far this conversation has come. And I want to thank you as well for your commitment really to doing your part in really elevating such an important conversation, and even more so the work that needs to be done to get us to where we are today. But to answer your question, I mean, it depends on the day. For me, there's this so there are a couple of things. One, me having clarity and understanding that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And even more specifically, a marathon relay, right? So I just have baton at this moment. There were people that were running before me, and there will be people running after me. I understand that my responsibility is to run as fast as I can, so the next person that runs after me will be closer to the finish line, and as close as possible to the finish line than they would be if I did as hard as I could and as deliberate as I could. I will also say that a deep admiration and respect for individuals that have come before me, who have made greater sacrifices and have given their all for us to have an opportunity to have this conversation. And also the people who will be here before us, our kids, our grandkids, the children. For me, that is a big motivation. And my family and loved ones, being able to take a step away when I need to, finding space for respite is really, really important. And so these have been very complicated and difficult times, I would say. But, I always just think about what our ancestors went through just 50 or 60 years ago. This is a walk in the park compared to what some of our heroes have had to deal with or had to deal with in the past. So I'm just honored to be a part of the race.
Thank you. That's a wonderful reminder, right? That to be here today and to do this awesome. So, Nate, we are finishing up a madcap summer of community engagement, and term name is community engagement, stakeholder engagement. But we're really trying to hear from the experiences of residents of Brookhaven as to their understanding, perception, concerns, around issues of social justice and race and equity, in the midst. Can you speak a little bit about why community engagement is so important, particularly at this time? Level, and even when sometimes when you've seen it really effective?
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, I think that community engagement, or the importance of community engagement, really aligns with my own personal belief and the belief of the Partnership for Southern Equity, that the people that are actually closest to the problems of our community are actually closest to the solution, right? That you cannot fully realize the type of innovations that are required in order to create a more inclusive and just world if you don't connect and leverage the wisdom and the resilience of the individuals who are actually closest to the problem. So it's not just about hearing them and allowing them to be heard. It's actually about creating a space for them to actually be co-creators of the a clear definer of what the problems are that you are working to undo and solve, right? So it's this belief that they have a part of the solution. The second reason why is because there is a need and an urgency around accountability. That the more you engage community, the more you not only have a partner as it relates to holding you accountable, but also it gives you an opportunity to hold the community accountable as well. The more people are involved in co-creating a solution, the more people will be in a position to be held accountable for the either success or failure of that recommendation. So when you try to do it on your own and not include a lot of people, you're actually setting yourself up, right, for I don't want to say failure, but a lack of accountability, which minimizes opportunity for true innovations and ownership to occur as it relates to implementing the vision and strategies that you want to implement. So that's the second reason why community engagement, in particular on a grassroots level, is really, really important. And then the third piece that I think is also really important is that unfortunately we live in a time where we forgot that the elected officials work for the people. The people don't work for the elected official. And so every time an elected official is running for office, they're actually going through a civic job interview. And we forget on many occasions that the people who are sometimes not invited to the actual decision making are actually the people who gave you your job through their vote. And so if we want to be fully responsive to our bosses, which are the community, then we have to do what we can to make sure that we create space for them to engage.
This is amazing. This is amazing. So when have you seen it really work, be successful? Just some examples, Stacey.
Well, I'll give you an earlier example of PSC's history and a later example. The first example, of course, that I know you're aware of is the Power of Opinion effort that we did in Clayton County, where we had a chance to work with the business community, elected officials, the faith community, and others to really galvanize this whole opportunity that realized itself around expanding MARTA into Clayton County, which required two key things. One was the governor actually allowed Clayton County to vote on a referendum. And the political leaders in Clayton County for many years had tried, but failed. And through our work in what we call value-based organizing work, we were able to connect with a gentleman by the name of Michael Blank, who was a political figure in Clayton County, and who at the time, had no real affection or support in his heart for public transportation. He was actually against public transportation. But as a result of our work and a relationship that we were able to cultivate with Representative Blanton, he was converted into a supporter of public transit. And we were able, through that engagement, which really is built on relationships, to position him to actually engage and leverage his relationship with the governor and the Republican community to actually vote and allow Clayton County to vote on a referendum. And once that was passed, then we went to work in the community, through the faith community, through the churches in particular, to begin the process of engaging the broader community. And as a result of that, we got over 90% of the vote for the referendum, which created a $13 million set aside to advance public transit in Clayton County. And at that time, and it still is the only time that MARTA has expanded outside of Fulton County, the city of Atlanta, and DeKalb County. So that was, but that came as a result of a robust community engagement and community education effort. And I actually believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Community Foundation was one of the funds in Clayton around the Power Penny campaign. And then a more recent effort, which was in East Point, which was also very, very rewarding for me, in that we had an opportunity to recently, about a month ago, the City Council passed the first equity and inclusion strategic plan in the state through the leadership of Mayor Dina Ingram and the City Council. But before that, we were able to actually develop an effort called the Summer of Equity in East Point, where we actually provided and brought panelists from across the country to talk about various aspects of what we heard from the community were key challenges associated with some of the equity challenges in East Point. We ended up through our robust community engagement effort to understand that industrial reuse, economic inclusion, housing affordability were the three major issues in East Point. We built a learning initiative around it called the Summer of Equity. And we also designed a leadership program called the East Point Leaders for Equity program, where we actually began the process of strengthening the civic agency of community residents to not only be engaged in helping the elected officials understand what the opportunities and challenges are and why this plan was so important, but to also show up when it was time to vote in order to hold the elected officials accountable. So that was a very, very rewarding process that we initiated. And again, I think a strong example of why the community is not the enemy. If anything, they happen to be a key player in creating and implementing the solutions that are required in order for us to realize more just and inclusive communities.
You know, I love it because both of those examples, and tell me if this is a pattern, right, or put your reflection on it. So both of those examples are how community voice, community engagement led to policies and practices, right, and resolutions, like not great ideas, but some actionable, sustainable commitments.
That's right, and that's why it's like really important, because I think a lot of times people believe that this work around equity or racial equity is just a feeling, right? It's just about making people feel good and or making sure that people are seen. Well, you know, that's one part about it, but we also have to understand that, you know, policy in essence is a reflection of values, of the values of people in power, right? So we've got to translate those values of inclusion and equity that we're working to advance. We have to translate that into budgets, right? Budgets are a statement of values, right? A lot of people don't understand it, but you fund what you value. You know, policy is a reflection of the values of people in power, right? So we have to understand it. It's not just about people feeling good or feeling valued or being inclusive. That is a great part about it. But it's also about actually influencing the values, right, that perpetuate change or inequity in communities, and articulating that value shift through the realization of innovative public policies that will help to create and realize in real time the systems transformation, the transformation of systems and institutions that we need to occur in order to make equity real in our communities.
This is wonderful, and it's wonderful not because it's just so brilliantly stated and so smart and so logical, but also it's for the perfect time for the condition from whence it has come, from, you know, learning and grounding and data and engagement to really begin thinking about how to make this work sustainable and mean something. So it's a perfect conversation. I think we've answered most of the questions we have around experience. Here's what I've asked. I shared a little bit already about the commission and its formation at the end of 2020, and particularly around these 4 topics. Right now, from this perspective and where we are, what advice do you have for these commissioners who are getting ready in September to put pen to paper and start developing, right? They're articulating and developing a set of actions for their elected officials and city workers to implement. What advice would you have for that?
Well, I would say, you know, pay attention to the data. You know, don't allow your own opinions or what you've been told anecdotally about what the issues are or what the numbers say to completely influence your decision making. Allow the data to influence and inform your decision making. I would also say listen to the people. You know, take time out to not just listen to the people that are in your immediate spheres of influence, but also go further, reach further, you know, attempt to find other people that may be left out of this discourse in this conversation to hear what they have to say. Remember, those people are actually closest to the solution. You may not realize it, but they may be able to provide some additional insight that can assist you in making the right decision for all people. And 3, be courageous. Don't allow politics to get in the way of good public policy. Don't allow why you initially chose to be a public servant. Don't allow that and what your goals were as being a servant to be thwarted by the politics or the loudest voices. Listen to the voice in your heart. That is the only voice that should be the primary driver of the decisions that you make. And I think that if you follow those 3 recommendations, some good policy will come out of the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for your time and your words.
I appreciate it, Leslie, and I'm looking forward to seeing great things come out of Brookhaven. So I'm looking forward to it.
We'll speak close. Thank you so much.
Yes.
That's it. Even though he's not here with us right now, can we give a hand for Nate? Just send him some positive vibes. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into our community engagement updates now. Following that really inspirational talk from Nathaniel Smith with PSC, I think what we want to do is just encourage you to marry some of what he said with all the work that you've done this summer. And we hope that you feel proud of what you've accomplished this summer. And we hope that you really just reflect on what you learned and you're able to infuse that in your recommendations in the coming months. So you've seen this before, you've seen this all summer, you're probably tired of seeing it. But this is our community engagement plan. This is what we set out to do. Civic dinners, check. Community pop-ups, check, including about 5 rescheduled community pop-ups. Commission presentations. We didn't get invitations to many organizations, but it's not too late, you know, maybe there's still some hope out there for us. The council district discussions we're in the middle of, and the subcommittee focus groups / interviews, and we should also say / surveys, which is a lot of the tactic that a lot of y'all have taken in progress. So that's where we are from a high level. Wanted to let you guys know the civic dinners inclusive summary. This is just August 9th dated, doesn't include the ones that happened outside of August 9th, but we got a total of 151 attendees, which is incredible. So thank you to everyone who knocked on doors, who passed out flyers, who emailed your neighborhood associations, and an especially big shout out to Kiana Perkins, who is here, I think virtually, because she did an immense amount of canvassing. And then also, of course, Stephen, who was like a wizard with his wand and pulled this all together, except I hear that it was not as effortless as a wizard with his wand. So we thank Stephen for everything that he did. So of the 151 people who attended, we had 117 attendees who completed the survey. The majority of them were residents, a few of them were not. Of the 92 resident attendees, 68% said that their self-awareness around racial equity improved, which I think it's hard for that not to happen in those kinds of intentional conversations, but we're glad that it did, nonetheless. And then 79% said that they think the city should make racial equity either a high priority or a significant priority in policy making, which is huge. And it just goes to show that there are citizens, residents who want to see this work happen and they want to see it be successful. So key takeaways: conversation is incredibly powerful when you create a container, a space to have meaningful conversation. More is needed. Like almost everyone walked out of there being like, oh, I want to do this, you know, with my church. I want to do this with this other group of people, my neighbors. So more of that, we hope. And then of course, we're there, I think on an individual lesson, were just some lessons learned from the stories you heard, the people that you met, and that's always incredibly powerful as well. Community pop-ups. So we aimed for 6 events, and then we turned out we had 7 events. And I want to thank the 8 commissioners who joined us at these various events. You were instrumental in the Northeast Plaza one, Marcella as well. We can't do this work without our fluent Spanish speakers. But beyond that, I think your passion for the conversations and sharing the information is just, we couldn't have done it without y'all. And then of course, we appreciate our English speakers as well. Tawana, Commissioner Woodward, everyone.
Do we have a commission puppy then?
We do. Owned by the commission, but Tawana is caretaker. So of the 134 surveys that we got, again, the majority were residents, about 2/3 of them, and 82% of them answered that they think the city should make racial equity a higher top priority or significant priority, which again is huge. This is the evidence that we need in order to make some strong recommendations to City Council, to the mayor, to say, this is something that community cares about. So last but not least, we're in the middle of council district discussions. John presented at the first one in District 1, and then in District 2, Leslie, did that end up? Beth, okay, I know.
Amy was there, and I'm Shirley.
Beth, Amy, and Charlene, thank you so much for your leadership at the second one. And I heard that the conversation was really great with the folks who attended. And we have 2 more coming up. So we are collecting surveys from those, and we'll share those results out once they're all completed. So our community engagement puppy. This is what we're wanting to, oh wait, this is Leslie's part. Let me, okay. So like Leslie mentioned earlier, part of the work that we're tasked with doing, I know we've all been really focused on our subcommittees, but we do also have to, part of our commitment is to create recommendations around robust community engagement. And so we want to ask you, what did you hear this summer when you were out on the corner of Beaufort Highway and North Cliff Valley Road? What did you hear when you were at Brookhaven Library talking to folks? What did you learn during these conversations? Think about the civic dinner or dinners that you attended. And then how do we continue to ensure robust community engagement? So a note for the folks online, I'm gonna send out a link in just a moment, or I might have Burke do it. And then Leslie, did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, just that, please, we want to move in groups of 3. You have a pink sheet there. Want to take the next 10 to 12 minutes and answer those questions, just top of mind. This is just where you are now in all the sessions you participated on. And ask that whoever records that on the pink sheet to give a report out in about 15, I'm trying to think the exact time, but somewhere between, what time do you have, John? 8:21. So why don't we say Why don't we say 12 minutes and then we'll take 3 minutes for report out. So answer those questions, just have some, what'd you hear when you were out on the street, hanging out? What did you hear later and so forth this summer? How'd you grow, right? Because this is a personal journey and a collective journey. How'd you grow? What'd you hear? What'd you learn? And what can you think of that ensures engagement? So just take a moment and have those discussions and then we'll hear back from you.
All right, everyone who's in the online Zoom virtual chat, I just put a URL into the chat room. If y'all will take a look at that and fill that out. I know that Mindy and Leslie would appreciate it a lot. I'll continue to monitor the chat, and I believe we've got another 10 or 12 minutes to complete this. So thank y'all for putting up for the technical difficulties along the way. Appreciate your patience, and let me know if there's anything I can do. Thanks. Oh, yeah, Mindy asked me to remind you, we have actually disconnected you from the House speaker, from the PA system. So you can unmute your mics and talk among yourselves, and you will be in basically a private group. The rest of you're not going to be disturbing anybody in the room. The only person that would hear you outside of you would be me. So y'all can talk amongst yourselves to the extent that you want to. So right now you're disengaged from the PA system. So just keep that in mind. Thanks. You do not see the URL in the chat. Oh no. Okay, John, you are an attendee, not a panelist. But if you will put your email into the chat, I'll send you the link. There you go. Got it.
Some of the issues that are coming forward,
All right, John, I just sent it to you, and I know you guys are getting a lot of room noise. I'm going to go ahead and mute the mic so you won't have that disturbing you anymore. So stand by. All right, Leslie's giving the 2-minute warning, commissioners. So two minutes before we reconvene. You gotta alert the technical crew. So, all right, so you're up there.
And I'm gonna be passing the mic around. We're gonna come back together and just share what, are you ready to report? You're not supposed to count. That's an old facilitated trick. Does anybody need a few more minutes? They feel okay. I'm gonna get you.
When you're here, don't use this. Okay. When you're away from here, use this. Okay?
Mindy, I'm gonna give it to you to take around. So, we'd like to hear from everyone. Mindy will bring the mic around to hear your responses. And we're gonna also ask you to leave the sheets with us because we wanna record them, make sure we have them. For those who are online, y'all, for those who are online, you won't see the speaker. Mindy is going to be taking the mic around, so you'll hear the report outs, but you won't see the speaker because we're not going to ask everyone to come up. And after we hear from the folks in the room, then we'd like to be able to hear from you online. So from this first group, who's the reporter?
They're making me work since I'm not under the chair. So we started out with what did you hear this summer? And everybody agreed that there were people interested in it. They really felt that they wanted to be a part of the conversation and they appreciate what's going on, but they're very interested in the topic that's being discussed because of the greatness of this commission in the city. Question number 3, what did you learn from the conversations? It's mentioned that people care about issues about equity. That was something that was learned. The second, too short of a time to fully discuss the topic. So it appears that as people were engaged in civic dinner or at the pop-ups, they would run out of time and they would say, man, we need to get together again. So I think that's a very good takeaway. And third, under question number 3, it's a very difficult conversation to explain social justice and race, especially when we're dealing with the Hispanic communities. They are more interested in tangible items such as housing, jobs, things of that nature. They understand that there are social justice and issues out there, but they're so interested in jobs, affordability, and housing. Our fourth question, how do we continue to ensure robust community engagement in Brookhaven? The group said we should find a way to engage more with the Hispanic community. We should incorporate a civic dinner in Spanish, not just having a translator there available, but having the full dinner in Spanish. And also, and we tried to do this, and I shared with them what the commission intent was, engage school-age students to provide input to be able to connect the topic discussions with their parents. So I think that's something that's very important, because as we have school-age students involved, it gets back to what Nathaniel Smith was saying. We're getting closer to people who are going to feel the solution. So I think that was a very key point. And that's the last item.
Want to just look around this side? I know, right? We were really similar in what we learned this summer, having to deal with people caring about issues of equity, where, you know, we learned, I'm scared, I'm like, okay, so, but that many people do care about the issues of equity, and that was great. But we also saw, or at least I personally saw, that while people were compassionate, it was more of an empathy. Like, I don't really know what's happening, and I don't really see anything happening. But you know, just like I don't want puppies kicked, I don't want, you know, there to be issues of inequity in the community. But they didn't have real examples. But then we learned more that there are people in this commission that also learned of a lot of issues of inequity that exist in Brookhaven, even though they personally live in Brookhaven. But just to hear about the stocks or the disparities in treatment or the disparities in just different walks of life in Brookhaven, they learned a lot about that this summer. We also talked about that during the dinners, that there were these really healthy debates where people were just really respectfully breaking down misconceptions and myths and figuring out how to move forward. Again, not enough time to really delve into it, but we were pleasantly surprised that there were even groups of folks that met for the first time at the civic dinners that have met in real life again after that. And these were perfect strangers that didn't all look like each other, that felt the need to come together again after the civic dinners and continue their conversations on their own time. So it wasn't just the free food that got them out, but on their own time. So that was awesome. And then we were discussing on how to continue to ensure robust engagement. And we were saying that we really do need to find a way to really sustain the work. The policies that come out of this commission and the accountability that comes from that would be one of those ways to making sure, and that's something we've been saying from the beginning of the commission, but also continuing to circulate communication around social justice and racial equity. We were talking that a lot of the people we met actually got the newsletters and saw it and didn't really know what it was, but thought it was really cool. But to continue that type of communication for however Brookhaven intends to implement the policies that we bring out, so that will continue to show that it is important, because again, the policies are really the values of people in power. You learn that, and it is really cool to see if they continue to value that after we move on. That was it.
Okay. So what we talked about, we started talking number 2 with what do we hear this summer. I said not COVID, because there are already disparities that came up talking about COVID. But there's the conversations about critical race theory, particularly within the school system. So there were some things that came up about that. And that even though that's happening, there's also different definitions regarding diversity, equity, and inclusions. And there are fears about having that conversation. And I think that some of those fears also think about how do we fight. So I wrote this: how do we fight and teach those strongly opposed diversity, equity, and inclusion, and critical race theory, especially given the current political climate that we're in. But then also how do we provide opportunities regarding teaching what diversity, equity, and inclusion is, and the ability to have recreational experiences and stories regarding DE&I work. So I think it's just really the foundational work of how do we teach this, particularly for the work where we do have parents who are opposing it, but students who want to learn it. But then there are also parents who want students to learn because they want them to grow up in a more just society. But so how do you have those kind of conversations given where you work and the institutions that you support? Okay, yeah. Thank you.
I have a mic.
Aren't you special?
So things that we heard this summer were this was awesome, and not just as a token saying as people leaving dinner, but I personally hosted a dinner for commissioners, and the commissioners thought it was awesome. And then when we hosted dinners in the neighborhood, man, this was awesome. Thanks for doing that. That was great. Another thing that we heard, and I think all of us probably heard this at some point, and it was, what do we do now? And that's going to feed into the fourth question. And one other thing that I thought was really encouraging was not only this is awesome, but I know I heard it more than once. How do we have more of these conversations outside of inclusive and outside of having to pay for it? And we talked on that some of the people have connected outside of the meetings that we had. But it is going to take millions of conversations like these, right? And so it started here, and I was super encouraged by that. One thing that we learned from the conversations I didn't hear brought up by other commissioners is that the black and white conversation can sometimes overshadow the same issues and feelings for other people that are considered minorities, other people who aren't white and aren't black can feel kind of left out of the conversation. I think that's something that we can also as good citizens, remember that. You know, we touched on it with the Latino community, more worried about the tangible things like housing and jobs. But I think that other people who don't consider themselves to be white or black can also feel very left out of the conversation. And they get some of that, what's in it for me now? How does this affect me? And something I think that was reinforced that I did not hear, but I want to say, and that is proximity breeds empathy. And that is exactly what these conversations were set out to accomplish with inclusive, or what was called civic dinners until 3 weeks ago, is that being together in a room and having an intimate conversation around a table or sitting in the street in your lawn chair, just having a conversation with neighbors. That proximity breeds that empathy that allows us to listen to one another and realize that a different point of view isn't necessarily a wrong point of view, and that we can grow from one another and grow towards the end of that race, as Nate talked about. So we wrote down 3 things that we think can help ensure that a robust community engagement in Brookhaven would look like. One of that is to send commission members to specific organizations and or churches to speak on what we've been doing over the last year. Another one is to include that all city departments, not just the police department, but the people that work for OPTEC who handle parks and recreation and road crews, all stakeholders, right? Anybody who lives in or works in Brookhaven would be considered a stakeholder in this. And as many people as we can touch and survey and ask and discuss the situations at hand, then it is more data to have to comb through, but I think that can only create healthier data for us to react on later. And then I think the city can continue these conversations for years past 2020, 2021. These are the types of things that as volunteers, we can have a table at a festival 3 years from now to still have these conversations and ensure that the conversation didn't stop at the end of the commission as it was, but something that the city is always going to be invested in because they want to be tip of the spear when it comes to slicing through what has been and making a way for what's going to be in the future in our state and in our nation, hopefully.
Give yourself a round of applause. You all did a great job. Thank you.
All right. This is going to be a little easier said than done. Now, do any of our commissioners online would like to join us. Hold on. Commissioners online? Is there anybody that would like to speak? Let me stop. Yeah, everybody's on mute. But you don't have to be. You'll be live in the room if you'd like to speak. Commissioners Cruz, Todd, Commissioners Cruz, Thomas, Todd, Warren, Thomas, Wells. Anyone? Got a no thank you. I believe we've got all the takers we're going to take.
Okay.
Here we go. Big round of applause for our virtual commissioners.
What would we do without technology? Thank you, Bert. Next on the agenda, let me thank each of you for really diving into those questions, because that's going to be very helpful as the Chrysalis Labs, Mindy and Leslie, start to formulate the document. So
okay, I guess it's working. Yeah. Oh, I know. Where are you saying? Where did my slides go? Okay, we don't need the slides. It's fine.
Okay, you good? Okay. Again, thank each of you for diving into those questions, because that's going to be very meaningful. Get my head back. Okay. It's going to be very meaningful to input that's going into the report that Chrysalis Labs is going to be preparing. Next on the agenda, we're going to go right into our public comment section. The public comment portion of the meeting will last approximately 30 minutes. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes, thereby providing an opportunity for 10 speakers. If a speaker wishes to speak beyond the 30 minutes time frame, he or she will be transferred to the speakers list for the next commission meeting. As a courtesy to others, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes or less. We do not want to rush anyone, but we do want everyone to be heard. Social justice, race, and equity issues can be emotional issues. I'm asking that you refrain from any personal comments and keep discussions on the issue of social justice, race, and equity. No applause, no clapping, no yelling. We're going to mute you. Well, we can't mute you guys. At this time, public comment section of the meeting is open. Any public comments? Bert?
Anyone in the room?
Anyone in the room? I recognize one hand. Please state your name, give your organization, and give us your public comment, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Freddie Brown, and I work with Georgia Municipal Association, known as GMA. And I just want to commend the commission on the work that you're doing. My role with GMA, I am the Director of Equity Inclusion. And so with my current role, I actually travel around the state and work with all the elected officials and city administrators across the state on finding ways to help them understand the importance of the work that you're doing. And so I will say that Brookhaven is really, really setting the standard. And I actually reference when I'm training or talking to elected officials, I actually reference the work that you're doing in Brookhaven as something, as an example of what other cities will need to be doing. So I just want to commend you for the work that you're doing. And as a resource for GMA, is there anything that I can do or GMA can do with your initiatives to make you successful in what you're doing? Please don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we're here to help serve you as well, because Brookhaven is one of the members of Georgia Association. So we're here to serve you as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your input, and thank you for being here as well. Burke, anybody out in Zoom land, guests or panelists?
We do have some attendees, and I'd like to invite anybody who's in our attendee gallery right now. They would like to speak during the public comment portion, please raise your hand or let me know in the chat. I'll be happy to bring you over. Mr. Armwood or Mr. Paris? I'm not seeing anybody at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Final call for public comment before I close the public.
All right, I'm sorry, I had a mic issue. Calling again for John Armwood or Steve Paris. If you'd like to speak at this time, let us know during the public comment portion. Seeing none at this time, Mr. Chair. Wait, John Armwood would like to speak. John Armwood has been with us the entire time, and we would like to hear from you now, Mr. Armwood.
Yes, thank you very much, and I'm very glad to be in this meeting. I live in the senior facility, Ashford Parkside, and unfortunately, these summer activities were not made known to us, and I would have been involved. I've been involved in activities before the pandemic with the police department, the coffee with the cop, breakfast with the cop. I've gone to a number of those activities. I'm a former criminal justice professor. I actually taught critical race theory. I've met the founder, Derek Bell, when he was at Harvard. I've lectured at Harvard, and I'm a lawyer by training, but I'm really interested in being more active. I've been to city council meetings prior to the pandemic. It's just I have health issues and I've been scared to come out because of the pandemic. But I wish there was more notification, in particular with the senior citizen committee, because we have a very large, diverse senior citizen committee on Blair Circle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elmwood. We will definitely take note of your comments. Thank you for your input, sir. Any Commissioner Williams?
Yeah, sorry, just real quick. I think that as we're doing the work on social justice, race and ethnicity, equality, I think we also have to, we tend to focus a lot on race and ethnicity. We also have to think about the intersectionality that that has, and the ability to think about how we also provide support for members who may not be a part of a heteronormative experience. And so the way in which we can also think about that as we're doing that work is also very important. So I just wanted to bring that up as just something to think about as we're getting ready for recommendations.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your comment. Duly noted. Any other public comments? Did you check Facebook Live with public comment?
Yes, I didn't know.
Okay, thank you. We checked Facebook Live. I thought you were listening. We checked Facebook Live. We checked Zoom.
No emails.
No emails. So thank you. At this time, I will close our public comment section of the meeting. Thank you to those who participated and provided your comments, and it's duly noted. At this time, I'm going to bring Leslie back up, and she's going to talk a bit about the upcoming activities, and we want her to bring up her other associate.
Thank you. So just to remind you, PowerPoint's acting up, but we finished our summer, and beginning in September, we're turning to move to how we develop recommendations. And so we'll be having some very deliberate conversations moving forward about how to best do that. And we need to hear from you how to best do that. I mean, I'm still reminded that EXA asked to figure out a way to do some more cross-committee, subcommittee dialogue. I don't know the best, we have an executive committee, but what's the best format? We need to hear that from you. Do we all get into a room and try to kind of figure that out and move or so forth? So I encourage your ideas about how to best make sure that you have what you need, the space, the information, right? And the support to develop recommendations. So that's the period we're moving into. We'll be very deliberate in sharing that out. And then I want to do an announcement is it going to be you, Kim? Come on up. We want to announce the book club is back. So like all students of the world, you got the summer off. Class is back in session. We're gonna be like the Northeast. We're gonna wait till after. I grew up in the Northeast, so it's after Labor Day. Okay, so we start after Labor Day. So Steve and I are excited to announce that we'd like to reconvene the book club after summer hiatus, and our first book will be The Other Westmore. Somebody likes that book. So The Other Westmore, many of you may know that Westmore was the CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation. And he wrote a book about a Westmore he read about in the paper who was similar age, same name, a few blocks away. And it's a very good story about how it takes a village to raise a child. And depending on what village you're in and what family you're born to. And here's one Westmore who became a Rhodes Scholar and the CEO of one of the largest foundations in the country. And a few blocks away was another Westmore who ended up in jail with a life sentence for murder. And he explores their different path. And so we think it's apropos in terms of this city and what we know happens on other sides of our community, and people who look like us, who have the same dreams we have, but end up with different fates just because. And so we think it'd be a great opportunity. And again, our wonderful city and city manager has agreed to purchase the book for members of the commission. So Stephen or I will send out a note as we approach to Labor Day, get you the information, find out who would like to participate, get you the book, and then we'll plan to convene in October and discuss it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. We appreciate the book club reconvening. That's awesome. We look forward to it. Is there any questions of the commission? Anything from the commission? Any questions from the floor? In closing, let me thank each of you for your dedication, your passion, and your commitment for taking this charge and doing the work that you're doing for this commission, which reflects the city of Brookhaven. So I want to thank the Chrysalis Labs, Mindy, Leslie, Kim, Steve, and that's right, Kettlein. She's not here. She's been on vacation. So I'll send her a special note. But I really want to thank each of the consultant, their team, and the support team for all that you've done. Kristen, thank you and the city staff for supporting the commission. It really was a wonderful, should I say it still is, a wonderful partnership, because you make certain that this commission is fully staffed and supported. And many of them are here in Marcella, Burke, some of them are not here tonight from the police department, but everyone has been really wonderful, and I've enjoyed this ride. And I'm getting off the bus, but I'm not going to leave the station. So with that, I will, if there's nothing else before we adjourn, anything? One more thing.
You should have gotten an email around. I'm so ashamed. Everyone, virtual and live, should have gotten an email at 8:30 with the meeting survey. It's the same survey, but we review it each month. We really to make sure that the things that we're bringing up in this meeting feel relevant and meaningful. So yes, please, before you leave today, click the link, 60 seconds to complete the survey, and we really appreciate it. All right, back to you.
Okay. We typically get out at 9. We're finished at 8:56, so you have time to do the survey. So if there's nothing else, I will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all, and have a great evening. All right.